When we hear the name RMS Mauretania, we immediately think of the famous ship of 1906, owned by the Cunard Line. However, what if I told you that Cunard later owned a second Mauretania in 1938? Unfortunately, this second Mauretania is not as well known and is often forgotten. Hello everyone, it's Jamie from Old Shipping Lines, and in today's video we will discuss the entire life of the RMS Mauretania II, from her construction to her scrapping. I hope you all enjoy it. The RMS Mauretania II, a British ocean liner, was owned by the newly formed Cunard White Star Company, which emerged from the merger of the Cunard and White Star Line in April 1934. She was constructed by the shipbuilders Camel Laird in Birkenhead in England. Now, if we talk about the specifics of the vessel, the gross tonnage of this vessel would be 35,738 gross registered tons, with her length being 772 feet, and the vessel would have had a beam of 89 feet. The ship had an exterior design similar to the RMS Queen Elizabeth. The vessel was powered by two sets of Parsons single reduction geared steam turbines, and she had driving twin propellers, giving her a maximum speed of 26 knots. Now the ship would of course have had some amazing interiors. Superbly designed, her interiors featured what was known as the late Art Deco style, which could be seen throughout each of the three classes, although in a lesser degree in third class. The ship's layout did not include first class. Instead, it featured cabin class for 440 passengers, tourist class for 450 passengers, and third class for 470 passengers. Looking after them were a good 780 to 803 officers and crew. There were 10 passenger decks, which included a sports deck and sun deck, and a large number of sheltered promenades. For cabin passengers, there was an observation lounge, a smoking room, a writing room and library, a children's room, a gymnasium, and a veranda cafe. The tourist and third-class facilities were both well appointed and included a ballroom and cinema room. Now, when the ship was being built, she was the largest ship built in England at that time. The ship was launched the 28th of July, 1938 by Mary Bates, wife of the Cunard White Star chairman Percy Bates. She would say the following words.
"This is a red letter day, not only for me but for Merseyside, the launch of the largest ship that has ever been built in England. I hope that, like her namesake, she may work her way into the affections of all who have to do with her on both sides of the Atlantic. To the ship and all who serve or sail in her, I wish all good fortune. I name you Mauretania."
The ship was named Mauretania to honor the previous record-breaking ocean liner, which had been retired in 1935. The ship was designed for the London to New York City service and was the largest vessel ever to navigate the River Thames and use the Royal Docks. The ship embarked on her maiden voyage from Liverpool to New York, the 17th of June, 1939, under the command of Captain Arthur Tillotson Brown. After a week in New York, she returned to Southampton via Cherbourg, Friday, the 30th of June, 1939. Similar to RMS Aquitania 25 years prior, Mauretania had only a brief period of commercial operation before the outbreak of hostilities interrupted her service for over 6 years. Upon returning from her subsequent voyage, the Mauretania II made stops at Southampton, Le Havre, and finally London, where she docked at King George V Dock. Starting in August, she was reassigned to the London-New York service, supplementing the ship's the MV Britannic and MV Georgic on this route. On the 11th of August 1939, she departed on her last voyage before the war to New York. Her return voyage began September 30th, and on October 2nd, a German-English language radio broadcast from Hamburg issued a thinly veiled threat against her. Upon her return, she was requisitioned by the government. The Mauretania II was outfitted with two 6-inch guns and various smaller weapons, painted in battle grey, and subsequently sent to America by the end of December 1939. The ship remained idle in New York alongside the RMS Queen Elizabeth, the RMS Queen Mary, and the French Line's SS Normandy for 3 months, until it was decided to convert her into a troopship. On the 20th of March 1940, she departed New York for Sydney via Panama to undergo the necessary modifications. The conversion was completed in April, and by May she joined a massive convoy that included the Queen Mary, the Queen Elizabeth and the Aquitania, carrying 2,000 troops bound for the River Clyde via South Africa. Notable liners in this convoy also included the RMS Empress of Britain, the RMS Empress of Canada, the RMS Empress of Asia and the SS New Amsterdam. Throughout the early stages of the war, the ship transported Australian troops to Suez, India and Singapore. Later, she primarily operated in the North Atlantic and also conducted missions ferrying Italian prisoners of war from the Middle East to South Africa for internment after their defeat in North Africa. For the remainder of the war, she would continue her troop voyages. However, on the 8th of January 1944, she was in a minor collision with the American tanker Hat Creek in New York Harbor. After World War II, the RMS Mauretania II undertook multiple voyages for the government, transporting troops back home. These voyages primarily sailed to Canada and Singapore. Additionally, she completed at least one voyage from New Zealand, passing through Australia and South Africa before reaching Liverpool. The ship accommodated women and children in cabins originally used by troops with 10 occupants per cabin, while men stayed in larger dormitories, housing up to 60 individuals, sleeping in hammocks. On a notable voyage departing Cape Town on September 10th, 1945, the Mauretania II encountered a 3-day delay near Liverpool due to strong winds before finally docking on September 25th. In a historic voyage, the Mauretania II facilitated the first dedicated sailing of British war brides and their children being repatriated to Canada to reunite with their husbands, arriving at Pier 21 in Halifax, Nova Scotia in February 1946. On October 2nd, 1946, she arrived back in Liverpool, was discharged from government duties, and promptly entered Gladstone Dock for refurbishment by Camel Laird and Co. in preparation for her return to Cunard White Star Line service. After undergoing a comprehensive interior overhaul and refurbishment, the Mauretania II embarked on her first transatlantic voyage post-World War II to New York City, setting sail on April 26, 1947. Initially using Liverpool as her home port for the first 2 trips, she subsequently operated out of Southampton. Here, she served as a relief vessel for the Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth, filling in on the transatlantic route when either ship required maintenance. During this period, the London to New York service had ceased due to the MV Georgic, her former partner, being unfit for passenger service, while the MV Britannic had been reassigned to a new Liverpool to New York route. Later in the same year, the Mauretania II began operating as a cruise ship during the winter season, offering voyages to the West Indies and the Caribbean, known as dollar-earning cruises, that helped support the struggling British economy. By 1962, the Mauretania II was facing competition from more modern ships and was beginning to lose money for the Cunard Line. In October 1962, the ship was painted pale green, like the RMS Mauretania, and converted into a cruise ship. The passenger accommodations were reconfigured to host 406 first class, 364 cabin class, and 357 tourist class passengers. On the 28th of March 1963, the Mauretania II commenced a new Mediterranean service with ports of call including New York, Cannes, Genoa, and Naples. However, this venture proved unsuccessful, and by 1964, the ship was primarily engaged in cruising from New York to the West Indies. Mauretania's last voyage was a Mediterranean cruise departing New York on the 15th of September 1965. Upon her return to Southampton, it was announced that she would be retired from service and sold on the 10th of October 1965. The Mauretania II arrived at Southampton and had already been purchased by the British Iron and Steel Corporation. Departing Southampton on the 20th of November for her final voyage, she reached Tos, W. Ward's shipbreaking yard in Inverkeithing, Fife, Scotland, 3 days later. Captain John Treasure Jones, who had commanded the ship since 1962, skillfully navigated her through the muddy straits of the Forth without tugboats and successfully berthed her above the mud banks during the midnight high tide. There are rumors suggesting that the Mauretania II accidentally navigated up the River Douglas in Lancashire and became grounded in mud banks on her way to Fife. However, this seems improbable as photographs and footage of the Mauretania II in Inverkeithing were taken upon her arrival. Regardless, scrapping operations commenced shortly thereafter. By late April 1966, her funnels had been removed, and by mid-1966, her superstructure was dismantled. The scrapping process concluded by late 1966. And that marks the end of a video, my friends. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, if you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing to the channel, as that would help out the channel a lot. Now, if you have any thoughts, comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section down below, as I absolutely love reading your comments. And please let me know in the comment section down below as well what ships you would like me to cover in the future. Now be as well sure to check out our social media pages. We are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and we also recently have a website, oldshippinglines.com, where we have articles of the ships we cover and we have book reviews as well. I think you will enjoy the website very much. Now, with that out of the way, guys, I wish you all a good night or day, wherever you are. Stay safe, stay happy, and we will see each other on the next video. Goodbye, my friends.